So much socializing going on. Ooh,
I know. That's part of it, though. That's what it is.
You'd think they were excited to be here.
They are. They're excited to be socializing.
Nice.
Hey, we got the ladder in case anyone's really into it.
Right.
You can sit on top. Well, it'd be hard to sit on top, but you could go up. Dramatic. It would be dramatic.
Reaching for the stars.
Yep.
Yes.
Words from on high. Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
It's what are we doing next month?
I didn't know. I looked through the book. I thought, well, is he putting us outside? Is he putting us inside? Or
no, we'll do it here.
Oh yeah, regular spot. You guys can make it regular night. Okay.
Yeah.
What else is on?
The competition. That's right.
Oh my God.
Uh-oh.
Oh, it depends. Oh no, we don't want to do that.
We can't do it.
Papa Groove.
Oh, we don't want to.
That's a 9-piece
Ooh, we shouldn't miss
Montreal-based
that.
funk band.
Oh, all right. Why don't we all just go to that? We'll meet there.
Yeah, Tim or Trevor will give up their night of that to come do for the love of
No,
words.
we wouldn't ask them to do that. I don't think we should.
I don't think we should.
You were
do
kidding, I know.
that. I know. You could always give up your spot and call that. You're playing at the 39 days.
I'd gladly do that. Yes, on the. I've got it marked down. I'm practicing this week for the market, and then I'll be ready for you, them,
all of it.
Yes.
That would be cool. It's good to get you back out there again.
It's scary.
Because one of the neat things about being a wordsmith is that you can sometimes apply them to songs. And some of the greatest full-on stories have been written in 4 verses.
Mm-hmm. It's true. It's true.
Beginning to end.
Looking for good stories lately. Good cover story songs.
Well, there was a historian out of Calgary, songwriter. Oh, I can never remember his name. He's got a really thick neck.
Greg, a historian out of Calgary with a thick neck.
A singer, but he's won Junos.
Of our generation?
And yes, and Willie and him were friends. That's how I met him.
Oh.
But he, when you drive through on Highway 3 through the, and there was a mountain that fell down.
Not as well as you know.
Frank Slide. He wrote a song about that, like very historical versions. So he tells the story and some of the insight that went on inside of that. So very good to take a subject and then find a way to bring it.
Now I know who you mean because I've read the poem, but I still can't remember his name. Yeah.
Oh God.
But you met him.
His sister lives
Really
there.
knew him. Is he still alive?
Yeah.
No.
Very much so. His big thing I remember was talking one night about that he was going to have to lip sync for the Junos, and he wasn't sure as a folkie whether or not he could do that. And everyone looked at him and said, "Well, there's your paycheck.
Yeah.
Do it or don't."
They actually lip sync at the Junos?
Yeah.
Oh, terrible.
They don't want any mistakes.
Oh God, that's part of the art.
Yeah, right.
Does the Grammys do that? Probably, yeah. I don't know. I'm naive. I thought they were playing live.
Yeah, well.
There you go.
We're the
bastion.
last bastion of live music.
Mistakes all included.
You know it.
Good.
Get used to it. By the way, no mistakes tonight. You're the host.
That's right. I'm sharp as a tack.
That. And we have a guest tonight.
We do. Special guest.
Special guest.
Yeah.
I wonder if he's watching.
I don't know. Who cares?
Take it away, sir. Bill Levity and For Love of Words.
Thank you, Monsieur Longevity John. 11 and a half years and counting. Well, those glasses are dirty. So I'm wearing a Fringe t-shirt. I was at the Celebration of Life for Roger Sparks on Saturday? I don't remember. He was the, what would you say, John, artistic director of the Cowichan Theatre for 20 years? At least 20 years, and one of the originators of the Cowichan Fringe Festival, which happened in September, which was very exciting because the groups had all been traveling around the world by that time, and it was the last Fringe anywhere in the world. So they were pretty hot, and they were, joyous, I think, in their last performances, weren't they? They were partying hardy too. And so for me, I mean, being a young thespian in the 80s and 90s, I think I learned a lot going to those shows. These shows were pretty tight, pretty great stories and actors. And Also, he was. They were doing a little bit of black box style, I guess, just because they had to make smaller venues. Romeo's used to have an upstairs called Juliet's, different building. They were up there. The Elks Club was the after hours club. They had a tent out front. They actually did a seating on the stage at the Couch and Theatre. So there was bleachers and it was sideways, and the actors were there, so everybody was on the stage. So it was pretty interesting. And we, of course, have gone to do a lot of black box style over the years and grown to love it because of its intimacy, kind of like this. And as I've told you, we've been in here before. And John is a kind of a master set dresser, aren't you, John? He's nodding his head. And so John did an amazing job setting us up in here. So anyway, it was a tribute to Roger, who contributed a lot to this community. And I told an interesting story in which it sounded like drugs were involved, but I don't think they were. I think it was just my brain. And my story about the parallel dimension or the third dimension was that I saw him. Well, he was still a bit better in those days. I saw him at the brew pub. I don't know, 6 months or 8 months before he died, and we was just talking about the old days and shows, and I was telling him how much I appreciated, being able to see Dizzy Gillespie and Paul Horn and all these different people in Couch and Theatre. And then I said, but my favorite show was Miles Davis by far. I mean, just the fact that you had Miles Davis here just blew me away. And he paused and he looked at me and he said, well, Bill, Miles Davis never played in Duncan. And I was just aghast because I have actually a very clear memory of that show. And I know what he was wearing and the hat and seeing him move around on stage. So I guess it was whatever was going on in the 80s for me. I was temporarily in a parallel dimension where Miles Davis did play in Duncan. So I know Roger's up there now, and he may get to see that show finally. But thank goodness. So I read this for him, and I also sent it out to my friend Jimmy, who's in Cambodia, after many miles on the Staten Dam and the Vaz Dam, and traveling the world in a big boat. So this kind of a grounding thing, I figured. Uh-oh, lost the... Hey! Whoa. Hawk roosting, Ted Hughes. I sit in the top of the wood, my eyes closed. Inaction, no falsifying dream between my hooked head and hooked feet. Or in sleep, rehearse perfect kills and eat. The convenience of the high trees, the air's buoyancy and the sun's ray are of advantage to me, and the earth's face upward for my inspection. My feet are locked upon the rough bark. It took the whole of creation to produce my foot, my each feather. Now I hold creation in my foot, or fly up and revolve it all slowly. I kill where I please because it is all mine. There is no sophistry in my body. My manners are tearing off heads. The allotment of death. For the one path of my flight is direct through the bones of the living. No arguments assert my right. The sun is behind me. Nothing has changed since I began. My eye has permitted no change. I am going to keep things like this. Ted, baby. He's a Canadian guy, right? Ted Hughes. No? Who the heck is Ted Hughes? I feel like I better look him up now. Oh, British. Could be, okay. Oh, wait, Ted Hughes, Sylvia Plath. Right, oh my gosh. Anybody watch a movie about Sylvia and what a tragic kind of love affair that was? And I really fell for her writing too, very, very intense. I think we should let the young film star go first, Andrew, especially because your lip is so beautiful, shiny. and always make you wait. So come on, fella. Sorry, we'll stop teasing Andrew now, Debbie. Come on. Classic, like, from that era.
Yeah,
For sure.
like 50s?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. We were talking outside earlier about we never know when we're going to get called up. And I was for sure didn't think I was going to get called up first. And it's like, shit. But we'll get it through and then be done with it.
Did you have work to do? I could put you off.
No, I'm all good. Yeah. Yeah, I'll just read 3. The first 2 are kind of long. And I was looking at them today to try to like revise them and so forth, and then some parts don't make sense, but we'll just roll with it. And they don't really have titles, so I'll just go for it. While lechers undergo the slow transfiguration into vampires, and the shady ones evaporate into shadows and nocturnal winds, hamburger wrappers moving swiftly down downtown streets, while the guilty ones hang themselves from their feet for days on end and come to be seen as inverted trees with wilted leaves, and narcissists find their reflection in everything they see, and thus become the world, or God, or both, while fancy boys grow feathers of emeralds and give up even the concept of flight. The rough boys cure their skin through experience and become altogether reptilian. And despite the oddities that humans produce, the vampires, the reptiles, the hamburger wrappers, it is sensitive men alone who become monsters. Like bile or phlegm, some high-born idea gets into their blood system and muddies the whole thing up, igniting their brains with what is not but could be. It is sensitive men alone who become monsters, seers with telescopic eyeglasses and entropy sphincters, digesting all the hard truths and having done with none of them, trumpeting with taunt lips and flaccid limbs, the whole utopian idea undulating their fields of vision, blanched and bloated by ideals, deformed from ideals, dissuaded from the world. It is sensitive men who become monsters, but we've no need to fear them, creeping the floorboards at night. Their only known prey is their better mind.
Whoa. You're right, we are locked in. Really well written.
I thought that would stick a nerve because we're all soft here. Yeah. All right, this is a longer one because I live across just above Volume 1, as most of you guys know, and I smoke just by the parking lot. So I have to constantly see people when I'm outside just having a cigarette and a coffee. And the amount of stink faces that have been around lately, I don't know whether it's like summer or what the case may be, but everyone just like stares, but not like in a nice way, and it's starting to kind of get me down, so I wrote this about it. And I think most of it is just spite that has no warrant in reality, but we'll just do it. I think it's called In Tow. We'll say it's called In Tow. With fantasy trade wives and expensive bank accounts in tow, with mortgages, a Hatfield and McCoy's mentality, with a dog-eat-dog ethic which reduces their palate to lassie tenderloins in tow, with weak wrists and manicured nails, accustomed to burnishing brushes, and bellhops who appear biddable but spit in their room service, those subversive and joyous in their subtle, subservient art, Good men, you carry the seed of Onan in your stomach by your choice of choosing seafood chowder. And although you don't know it, you carry it in tow. With sources obscured, secret pains, and an ennui that cannot be deducted from tax returns, despite the accountant's usual pyrotechnics. With guided tours and luxury cruise excursions in tow. With renovations to rooms never used in tow. With an utmost ignorance of tackling the dishes, leaving a kitchen faultless in feng shui, all greased of elbow and pruned of fingers. With a parking pass and a valet in tow. With a bill slipped to ensure safe passage through ungodly streets, important landmarks situated in questionable neighborhoods in tow. Satin sheet breakups, pleasures bought and left in the morning for a flight back home. And the grimace that cannot be relaxed, the answering machine is unlimited, and no matter where you go, whether it be New York or Hong Kong or Chemainus, despite your company and luggage, you'll always be alone. You who descend in packs upon the park bench where I take my morning cigarette, with stink faces and fancy cameras, cautiously caustic, as if I were a hawk perched on a birdhouse, and your plumage were your only joy. Clutching at purses, car alarms, house alarms, ass cheeks, and spare change. Clutching an obscene sense of superiority, high-born airs and stink faces. With everything they hold on to, they resemble nothing more than hermit crabs, which is fine for crustaceans but will never do. For a lynx or a cougar, it will never do for a crow or a wren. Neither for cyclone, no planetary force capable of eclipsing the sun, much less a marathon runner, fleet-footed and harmonious among the human race. With all their possessions, none of these folks could ever be that swift.
Ew. Wow, do you think they're just disquieted by your Zen nature? Is that what it is?
I don't know. It's awkward though.
Could be.
Yeah.
Just don't look them in the eye.
That scares me.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like a fearful thing or what the case may be.
It's usually fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
People fear each other.
That's unfortunate. Okay, we got one more and then I'm done with the thing.
Could be the bloody axe you have beside you.
Just
People
that
jealous of your upper lip.
terrible. Okay, this one I guess we'll call it the walk. She would go for a walk whenever he got too drunk, when he started to stumble or a slur became too severe, when its hiccups became visceral, the remnants of supper, stomach acid coming up and being suppressed by the gates of his gums, or when he started to show his mean side, she'd go stepping out to exercise the smell from off her skin and steady the seismic shifts in her breathing. She'd take a stroll through pastoral parks and the downtown core, across town, bridges, and warring settlements. She'd take leave of him and take in the nighttime air. And as his breeze increased, becoming habitual and stout, as he delved earlier and more excessively into drink, everyone said that she was in the best shape of her life. Well, that was your mother, and that was your father. And these anxieties, braided like lovers' spoons, are just one of your vast inheritance.
Sir Robert. Such good writing. So handsome. And likable. Yes, sneering. What's with that, eh? I don't know. Bob, do you want to, is this a good time for you? Bob didn't get to do his preamble. I have a sad other Bob story. Our beloved Bob Norris, who's been in every show at the Gem these 7 years, is now finding himself unsteadied, and won't be in the show this year. So, no, just carry on. I'm just rambling to give you time to do that. That's all I'm doing. So that's a sad Bob story. But this Bob is ready. We could put you in there. You wanna do a role, Bob? Play a priest? Is Shakespeare? I bet you are. The somersault, the forward roll. How's
Bum, bum, bum. Sounds good. So this is just from one of my favorite novels. All my favorite novels at the moment are written by Thomas King. And this is a new one called, this is not one of his first ones. It's called The Back of the Turtle. And it's just absolutely delightful and humorous all the way through. It's kind of laconic, a lot of the humor, so it's hard to read. You have to read it yourself. But I took a little chunk out of the beginning and isolated some characters, maybe. And here we'll go in a minute. Okay, I got to do some background. What does that say? My lights are better at home. Well, there's a character called Gabriel, and he was a scientist for a kind of monster company like Monsanto. He came from a poor background, but he was really smart, and he got a scholastic arrangement with Stanford and got working for this company, doing evil things. Then there was a great disaster, and he felt responsible for it. Well, he'd invented this stuff. Green Sweep, it was called, and the chemical ran down the river and killed all the Indians in the reserve and devastated the landscape. So he came to this place, and in the first chapter, he tries to commit suicide by going to some rocks where the tide would catch him. But it didn't work out. He wasn't very good at it. So now he's waiting for the tides to get in the right position to try again, so he's got time to kill. So he's looking for a place to stay while this happened. And he was trying to rent a place to stay. And there's a remarkable character he meets, and that's the bits we're going to do right now. He imagined that Nicholas Crisp would be short and thin, which translate with translucent skin and a soft chin. But the man who walked into the Tin Turtle was tall and lanky, with a bald head, sharp blue eyes, and a red beard that floated about his face like a cloud on fire. Seeing Crisp for the first time, Gabriel was struck by the odd fancy that the fellow had somehow got his head on upside down. "I believe you have a trailer." Gabriel placed the flyer on the table and smoothed out the edges. "Is it for rent or for sale?" "Them's the choices in life, to be sure." Crisp broke off a piece of banana bread and held it out. "The milk or the cow herself?" You know, the renting or the owning. Gabriel tried the bread. It was dry, days stale with the oily flavor of something left too long under plastic. "Not to your liking, is it?" "It's not very good." "Not much in life is," said Crisp, "but we eats it up anyway, crumbs and all." So he talks to him for a while, and then there's a couple of other things going on. But he takes the offer of the trailer, and Nicholas says, "What about a chair?" "Chair? For the deck," said Crisp. "So you can sit and imagine the sea." Sorry. So ye can sit and imagine to have some say in creation. Would ye object to such an assembly? No, a chair would be nice. And what will it be? Crisp slapped his hands together. 1 for solitude, 2 for friendship, or 3 for society. Gabriel tried to remember if Thoreau had had a preference. 1 should be enough, he said. Then he came back the next morning. Crisp came by the next morning. If you must have a chair, a rocker is what's required, he said, as he dropped the tailgate of his pickup. Like riding an ocean swell or resting safe in your mother's arms. You made this? We used to sit on the ground, said Crisp, and we used to walk on all fours. This is a nice chair. And for all the good, truth will do us. We were happier then. Crisp walked to the edge of the deck. Have ye a name somewhere about your person? Gabriel nodded. Several. A name for every occasion, said Crisp. The Indians do such a thing, I'm told. Collect names as they're earned or as they appear. In that, I'm a poor man with just one name to drag about. Nicholas is a fine name. It covers the territory, it does. Saint Nick, Old Nick, that's Christmas and hell, and all the bleeding nicks of life in between. Gabriel. Mostly I'm called Gabriel. Gabriel! Crisp's voice rushed through the trees like a truck through a tunnel. Now there's thunder and storm, the best loved of the 4 angels, the one chosen to announce the birth of John the Baptist and to reveal the Quran to Muhammad. It's Gabriel what tells Mary about the road ahead. Nicholas shook his head with delight. Dante made Gabriel the chief of the angelic guards placed at the entrance to paradise. Did you know that? And if the creative arts are your bread and butter, no, your butter and jam, there's a movie called Constantine, which has a Gabriel which betrays heaven and joins forces with the Dark Lord. Crisp's eyes flashed in the fading light, and his lips curled away from yellowing teeth. And now, at the meridian of the world, as this now at the meridian of the world, on this seal, piss, and foggy dog day, here stands another Gabriel, rigged for battle and havoc. It surely takes my breath away. I'm not that Gabriel. Yet here ye are, said Nicholas, grabbing Gabriel firmly by the shoulders. Here ye are. And that sets the story in motion. And then it goes weaving through and all kinds of characters, and I can't say more. It's a wonderful story, always full of irony and humor, different kinds. Dialogue is incredible. Subtle stuff.
Really give you anything to grab on there. Thank you, sir. Good thought. All right, I'll come in and do it around. I haven't got time to make any program boxes. Anybody else handy? Greg's handy. He's got a lot of spare time. Keith, got any spare time? John needs some plywood. I think they're plywood, aren't they, John? Little, what do you call that? It's a rectangle, I think you call it, with a space in it. A what? Form. Thank you. I was appalled to hear Bob say earlier that as he ages, people give him a lot of advice. That seems pretty upside down to me. I mean, shouldn't it be the elders giving the advice to the others? What's wrong with today's world? Oh, we do have a very special guest tonight. First time here, young lady. Well, I'm not sure if she's a lady. A young woman who is a well-known artist locally, visual artist, and many other things, and did a great show. How long ago was that, Shannon? The birthing show, was that 2 years?
2017.
2 years. Okay, yeah, I really was moved by that. I know she's moved on and done a lot of different things since then. So we're very excited that she's here to share something with us. Do you want to make your way up here, young lady? Don't be shy. It's nothing to be worried about. And fellas, I think she's single. If you're looking. That was silly. Come on up.
Thanks.
Yeah. Just make sure your mic is where you want. Oh yeah, you're.
Sure, we're good. So the last kind of year or two, I think Mark and I have been talking about, and I think we've all been talking about the kind of decay in society with Trump down south and the decay in our environment. And we keep looking at it as something that's going on now, but really when you look at, in the past, it's been going on for decades. It's been going on for centuries in what we've been doing to our environment and what politics have been doing. So when I decided to come out, I went through a few of my poetry books, and I pulled out one of my favorites, one of the Charles Bukowski books, and went through there. And there was a lot of his work that I love, but the one I picked tonight, it's a longer one, but I think it really spoke to me about. This poem was written in 1992, and yet it could be written today. It could have been written 50, 60, 70 years ago, and it still speaks to the same. So here we go. Dinosauria We, and it's Charles Bukowski. Born like this, into this, as the chalk faces smile, as Mrs. Death laughs, as the elevators break, as political landscapes dissolve, as the supermarket bag boy holds a college degree, as the oily fish spit out their oily prey, as the sun is masked, we are born like this, into these carefully mad wars, into the sight of broken factory windows of emptiness, into bars where people no longer speak to each other, into fistfights that end as shootings and knifings, born into this, into hospitals which are so expensive that it's cheaper to die, into lawyers who charge so much it's cheaper to plead guilty, into a country where the jails are full and the madhouses closed, into a place where the masses elevate fools into rich heroes, born into this. Walking and living through this, dying because of this, muted because of this, castrated, debauched, disinherited because of this, fooled by this, used by this, pissed on by this, made crazy and sick by this, made violent, made inhuman by this. The heart is blackened. The fingers reach for the throat, the gun, the knife, the bomb. The fingers reach toward an unresponsive God. The fingers reach for the bottle, the pill, the powder. We are born into this sorrowful deadliness. We are born into a government 60 years in debt, that soon will be unable to even pay the interest on that debt. And the banks will burn, money will be useless. There will be open and unpunished murder in the streets. It will be guns and roving mobs. Land will be useless. Food will become a diminishing return. Nuclear power will be taken over by the many. Explosions will continually shake the earth. Radiated robot men will stalk each other. The rich and the chosen will watch from space platforms. Dante's Inferno will be made to look like a children's playground. The sun will not be seen, and it will always be night. Trees will die. All vegetation will die. Radiated men will eat the flesh of radiated men. The sea will be poisoned. The lakes and rivers will vanish. Rain will be the new gold. The rotting bodies of men and animals will stink in the dark wind. The last few survivors will be overtaken by new and hideous diseases, and the space platforms will be destroyed by attrition, the petering out of supplies, the natural effect of general decay. But there will be the most beautiful silence never heard, born out of that. The sun still hidden there, awaiting the next chapter.
I love Charles Bukowski. There was one year, maybe it was when the movie came out, that we watched Barfly just so many times. I mean, we really knew the dialogue. And, well, I don't know if that's a really accurate portrayal of him, but when you see the clips of him reading or just in a mini documentary, he's pretty hard-edged guy, but great writer. Always felt like he was, Steinbeck's hidden secret dirty cousin or something. And man, what a life, hard life. And he was actually in the movie. He's in one of the bar scenes where they pass by. Barbette Schroeder. Oh, it's a tour. Hi. You guys want to come in? Oh, just touring. That's fine. That's fine. No, that's great. No, you didn't. You didn't. I was just saying hello. Hi. Hello. Hello. I'm just gonna sneak in a quick one. Whoops. Bill and his quickies. Whoa. What have they been telling you? Oh, Andrew, is that disconcerting that I never tell anybody when they're gonna read? I just thought of that. Maybe that all these years, and I think I used to do that. What's that? Well, I wondered about that. Yeah, and then you're not sitting around thinking I'm going third, mentally preparing. You're actually fresh. Okay, so it is a little disconcerting, but maybe it has its attributes. Okay. The Chimney Sweeper is for my deceased friend, Mr. Terry Hallinan. Played, what were some of his famous roles? He played King Lear. Perhaps, was that our first Shakespeare, yeah. And he was a chimney sweep. When my mother died, I was very young, and my father sold me while yet my tongue could scarcely cry, "Weep, weep, weep, weep! So your chimneys I sweep, and in soot I sleep." There's little Tom Dacre who cried when his head, that curled like a lamb's back, was shaved. So I said, "Hush, Tom, never mind it. For when your head's bare, you know that the soot cannot spoil your white hair." And so he was quiet, and that very night, as Tom was a-sleepin', he had such a sight that thousands of sweepers, Dick, Joe, Ned, and Jack, were all of them locked up in coffins of black. And by came an angel who had a bright key, and he opened the coffins and set them all free. Then down a green plain leaping, laughing they run, and wash in a river and shine in the sun. Then naked and white, all their bags left behind, they rise upon clouds and sport in the wind. And the angel told Tom if he'd be a good boy, he'd have God for his father and never want joy. Well, you have to be good, though. I don't like that line. Gotta rewrite that one. Damn. It was going well till then. Be a good boy. Doesn't that just give you shivers? How many of you heard that growing up? I see what happened to Greg. Oh, jeez. Didn't work out, did it?
It's a mutual in society.
That's right, it is, yeah. I love that line about the narcissist is in the first poem, Andrew? What was that line? Can you just call that up?
See themselves in anything and thus become God or the world or both.
Oh, see themselves in anything or everything? See themselves in everything and thus become God, the world or both. I think I say that word a lot because it's an interesting phenomenon. You certainly feel it when you come across someone, and then you've got to wonder about yourself. You know, do I ever slip into periods of narcissism? Narcissism. Let's see. Rachel's going to tell a story. John's got his hand up. John wants to go now. I think that's what he meant by that. Did you? Pick me? Oh, good, because John's going, don't leave me to the end. Don't leave me to the end. How's the rock and roll band coming? Going good?
No.
It's still potential, isn't it?
That's a whole other story.
Oh, okay.
I only got 7 minutes and 23 seconds, so.
Who said that?
So, I'm continuing in the cab story vein. Nobody's told me not to, and I asked. I said, "Is it, But it's interesting because it's once a month, and I figure in a year I'll have 12, and then I watch a lot of Netflix with this episodal binging, and then I was starting to think, wait a minute, like how do they do that? So now I'm watching from an episodal point of view of things. So
Just a drug, though, isn't it? Really, I spent so much time since I got it.
yeah, and then I was thinking, what are the elements that So I've been reading about, especially the writers for Netflix, what they came up with, because that's what they want you to do.
Yeah, they
So-
certainly hit a beat, and so just as they come to the end of the show, you just gotta hit that button.
Yeah. Well, they leave something at the end that makes you want. You got to keep going.
I mean, he's right, you don't even have to hit the button.
No, yeah, just wait. 5 seconds, 7, 3, 4, 2, boom.
They don't make you wait too long.
Okay, so anyway, so I thought maybe, like, these to me are very, I don't even have a word for it. It's just a story. And then they were talking about the difference between a story in a novel and a story in like if you send your piece into a would-be publisher or whatever, or you're the would-be writer, and they got back a rejection letter saying your novel's very episodal, it's not a good thing, And I thought, oh, well, there must be some distinction between, But anyway, I thought what I have here is grist for the mill for more stories and more thought, because it's sort of developing as I go along, maybe. Because now I'm reading about how do you do this, and so then I try to incorporate, not that I'm doing very good at it. Anyway, this story is called The Dark Alley. It was just one of those good time, money-making Saturday nights. He'd had an easy succession of fares, boisterous party people, lots of trips outside the downtown core and back. People were everywhere. He just cruised the streets for flags, no sitting on stands or booking in the West End at number 23 for him. This is the way he had learned to make the most money, to cut himself free of the radio and just follow his nose. Of course, if it suited him, he would book into his own for the time he was driving through it. If he was third and it was moving quickly, he might stick around. It was whatever his intuition told him. He had learned to trust these feelings and go with them. Cab driving turned the city into a giant board game where luck was constantly rolling the dice to move him around. If he felt uncertain, he would flip a coin. The toss didn't determine where he would go. It just put him in touch with his feeling. Heads I stay, tails I go. Tails comes up, but he wants to flip again. This tells him his body wants him to stay, and he would. Go with the feeling, go with the flow. It worked. He had just dropped off at the Body Shop, a downtown rock club. He took a moment to start writing up his trip sheet. This was the night's record of the times, the pickups, destinations, and the money. He would go the whole shift before he wrote anything up, kept it all in his head so he could fudge the record to his satisfaction. It was nearing the end of his shift, and his pants pockets bulged with cash. He kept a few bills visible for change in his shirt pocket. As he was writing, the back door on his side suddenly opened, and someone got in, and sat right behind him. He didn't like that. He couldn't see who it was, and he felt vulnerable. There was no divider between the back and front like a New York cab. His wits were his divider, but he couldn't see. It wasn't good. The person didn't say anything at first, so he just sat there waiting. Finally, in his best fake-friendly voice, he asked, "Where to?" Guy's voice answered, 41st and Oak. Now, that is a bit of a red flag, because it's vague. So he asked for an address so he could write it down. He held up the clipboard he was working on. The guy said, "I'll tell you when we get there." The flag started to flutter. He asked the guy if he wouldn't mind sliding over to the other side. He told him it just made him uncomfortable to have someone sitting directly behind him. Usually no one objected, as he would preface his request with a "nothing personal," but most people understood and moved over right away. This guy did too, but slowly, a little too reluctantly. The cabbie glanced at him in the rear view, but his face was in the shadows. That didn't help. He tried striking up a conversation to get a better feel, but the guy's answers were monosyllabic, and he kept his head down. It was a good fare, and the destination was a good neighborhood, but his intuition kept tingling. It had been a great night, and he didn't need any fuck-ups now. As he approached 41st and Oak, he asked, "Where to now?" The guy told him, "Turn left." He did, and then the guy said, "Take the next right." He did that and ended up on a dark, empty residential street. The guy didn't say anything for a block. The cabbie felt a tension rising in his chest, so he asked for the address again. The guy said, "I'll show you." As they came up to an alleyway on the left, the guy said, "Turn in here." That was it. The cabbie stopped the car and said, "Sorry, but I don't go down alleys late at night. Just give me the address and I'll drop you up front." The guy said, "I live in a suite in the basement. The entrance is in the back. There's a fence out front. Please, just take me down the alley." It seemed like a reasonable request, and the guy kept insisting the cabbie had nothing to worry about. "I'm not going to rob you," the guy said. The flags were now rippling and crackling in the wind. The alleys in this neighborhood were accessible by a T-junction. He decided to acquiesce to buy time and made the turn. Then he would have to make a right to parallel a street. It was at this juncture the cabbie made his move. He put the brakes on to slow right down as if to make the right. Then in one swift motion he stomped the brakes, threw it in park, switched the engine off, yanked the key, and leapt out the door. The guy was completely caught off guard and reacted by scrambling out the passenger side. Now they were on opposite sides of the car. The guy made a move to come around. All pretense dropped. The cabbie just moved in the same direction, keeping the car between them. After what seemed like an eon of cat and mouse tag, the guy in his frustration started swearing at the cabbie and kicking the car. "Knock yourself out," the cabbie said. "It ain't my car." This only enraged the guy further. He put his head down in a flurry of kicks to the right rear fender. The cabbie seized his next chance. He positioned himself near the driver's door with the key still in his right hand. He leapt forward, pulled the door open, jumped in, desperately hoping to shove the key in the ignition on the first try, and praying out loud, "Come on, come on." He turned the key. The engine roared to life. He pulled it into gear as the guy was opening the back door. He floored the car, sending up a shower of gravel and wrenching the door handle out of the guy's hand. He could still hear him screaming as he fishtailed down the alley and bounced out onto the street. He just loved those ex-police pursuit cars. Now at this point, a lot of cabbies would radio in and yell, code red, give a location. This would bring every cabbie in the area to him, and the dispatcher would keep everyone off the air and wait to see if he should send the cops. The driver would have to keep the guy in sight till help arrived, radioing his position as he followed him. But what this cabbie did was radio in a no pay and a description of the guy in case he tried to flag another cab if he was that stupid, and then booked into the zone. The dispatcher said he was number 3 and asked if he wanted any assistance. He clicked the mic. "Not worth it, thanks." His heart was still pounding. The fare to 41st and Oak was about $10. He got half, so it's a fight over $5. If the police were involved, he would have to accuse the guy of attempted robbery and assault. That was assuming the guy stuck around. Then there's court dates. Basically, it all becomes a pain in the ass. So he just barreled down Canby Street towards downtown. He'd write up the trip as a no pay, inflate the meter amount so he got his $5 another way. Righteous indignation and revenge had its place, but not tonight. Intuition held the spotlight. He just stayed with it. The radio crackled. 96, Holiday Inn on Broadway. And away we go.
Cabby Chronicles. Or just call it Taxi Driver 2. Geez, I have a kind of a fever tonight. I was wondering why, and then I realized, right, I've been ingesting dust from 1942. It's kind of weird, isn't it? It's take my system a while to get used to it. Petrified rat dust, broken down newspaper dust. Keith, Debbie. Do I always make... Debbie's never gone last, has she? Oh, sorry, Deb. Keith, come on. I don't know why people don't like it, but, you know. Oh, he's coming up naked.
A new angle on things.
Been working on a new piece.
I'm actually quite unprepared. I did bring I think I'm going to tell a 3-minute story and then read a 2-minute poem. I had planned on reading the poem and not much else, but I'll try to start off with just a story or an anecdote. Haven't really thought about it much. It's pretty fresh. I'm fresh out of a relationship, a month and a half this time, with a woman who we tried a relationship also about 10 years ago. And we're too much alike in some ways, I guess. And her name's Elizabeth. She doesn't live in the valley here, so it's her real name. And but we've always been quite competitive. The night before we crashed and burned, we were playing poker, playing Guts, just the two of us, a game called Guts, and with our phones out ready to do e-transfers and literally trying to bankrupt each other. So the last time that we tried, we met about 15 or 16 years ago at school. We were both studying mathematics and accounting, specializing in accounting. And after 4 years of going to school together, we crossed the line and tried a relationship, and it was pretty intense. Well, you know, a typical evening, we'd be sitting around, and I might be reading, and she would be, this is embarrassing to say, she'd be doing an IQ test on the computer. And, you know, hey, Liz, what's 53 squared? Oh, it's 2,809. Keith, what's 45 squared? 2,025. We played a lot of Scrabble, and but for a little bit of context, about a week before our final Scrabble game, which was our final night, we'd been at a coffee shop. Liz had a doctor's appointment, and she came back to the coffee shop quite down and said, "I'm going to tell you something, but don't tell anyone. I just feel really shitty." Okay, and she said, "My doctor's put me on antidepressants." She said, "I just don't tell anyone. I feel so embarrassed and stupid." And I'm like, completely supportive. "Liz, don't worry about it. I was on them once for 6 months. It's like a jump start. Don't worry. It's nothing. It's nothing." She felt a little better. So about a week later, we were playing Scrabble. I don't think I ever did win a Scrabble game, but it was starting to irritate me. And so in this game, she was about 150 points ahead. And I think she put all 7 letters down. She got like 83 points, and she sort of was going, and not trying to be mean, but I guess I was sitting and just like, and because she said, what's wrong? Can't you be happy? You can't be happy just playing? I said, I'm happy. I'm happy. You don't look happy to me. I'm happy. I'm happy. You don't look happy. Liz, I'm happy. I'm just so happy that I don't have to take retard pills. So the board got folded really violently, and I remember a couple of pieces coming down on my head, and then a few minutes later driving across the Malahat and going, what's her fucking problem? So our friendship is still intact. We've been friends for a long time, but I kind of doubt that we're going to try anything again. Although, I made a dramatic. She said we needed a break the other night, and then I made a dramatic play and said, "Fuck that, we're done." And then the next morning, I tried to walk it back, tried to backpedal, and she was having none of it. So we're done. I'm going to read a poem that my niece, her name's Anna Naomi Williams, and she is a lovely person. She's kind of elusive. She's there and then she's gone. But she writes, she's an awesome pianist and composer, but she writes poetry. And the other night she texted me a first draft. She had just written it, and it hasn't been touched since then. I asked her if she'd mind me reading it, and she said, well, yeah, whatever, go ahead. So it has no punctuation or anything. I'm not a very good reader of poetry, but it has no title. She'll be 23 this summer, 23 years old. Drowning in the taste of slight absolution, unreachable like the first drops of dew falling, an early rising flower in May. Time turns and frays the illusion that once dreamt free, a distant sound of golden rays flowing, cast by the sun, glints of black reflection. See yourself sway with the current, crimson waters, pearlescent wind, take you away. Fractures in your stone-heavy heart, which once I held, hands bleeding. Oh, the woven vines which tangled and intertwined, we amongst the divine. The forsaken and forgotten, in time turned to ash, one with nothing, nothing with God. Unheard songs which once filled space with dark light, celestial sound, blood love and thorned heart, poisoned fingertips, spirals play upon thee, distant mutiny, ever heard, never seen, that love was just a dream. Time does mar, and thoughts will bury, still no cleansing fire could char that which is only what it seems. Thank you.
What was that one called? Or didn't have a title? No, very deep. Like that's an intensely spiritual poem for him. Well, just it's a good poem. Did I miss anyone coming around to Debbie? Anyone else wanted to read? Oh, hi. I can't see who it is. Oh yes, how are you? Oh, did you want to read something? Oh, okay. Deb, you've been waiting so patiently. Okay.
Bright lights. It's great to be back here. So enjoy hearing all of you.
We missed you last month, right?
Yeah, it's been months.
Where have you been?
I was in the writer's workshop, happened to be on Tuesdays, but done now. So,
Yeah, it was good.
yeah, I learned so much from listening to other people. I think that's how we can learn. So I'm going to continue reading from what I read the last time. It's speaking of what's a novel, what's a short story. I don't know what this is because it's from birth to advanced midlife in short story format. And I've just grabbed significant scenes and looked for a way of linking them together, which might be a bit like writing a series or episodic stories. And I just number them. That's what you can do when you don't have a title. Just say 326. So last time I read 1, and we learned that Myrna was born on the lawn in her backyard because her mother did not want to give birth in an operating room and have her wrists strapped to the bed, as happened sometimes in the late 1950s. 2. The wooden dolls stood in line at the edge of the blue Formica counter, 5 stages of womanhood, all watching. The smallest, made of a single piece, was a swaddled baby, the only unit indivisible. All others could be taken apart and set aside or brought back into the collective, swallowed whole by another. Myrna had softer dolls with fleshy faces and proper golden hair, but she loved the bright red, green, and yellow, hand-painted wooden dolls Baba gave her the best. Standing on a wooden stool next to her mama, little Myrna was learning to cook. They had boiled the potatoes, sautéed the onions, and stirred in cottage cheese to make filling. Now they were mixing dough with tender fingers, taking turns. At 4 years old, Myrna already knew the slide of silk, the cohesion, and the willingness to give. The art was in the hands, the taste in the fingertips. Mama said the dough needed resting, and she tucked it under a red checker tea cloth, pulling the edges tight as she did every night when she folded the top blanket under Myrna's chin and tucked its sides under the mattress. Pinned by love, Myrna would wait until Mama left before pulling out the edges and pushing down the blanket. Go now, Dochka, said Mama, wiping her hands on her apron, waving towards the back door. Get fresh air into those lungs. I'll call you when the dough's ready. In the backyard, Myrna kicked her brother's soccer ball, hitting the open space between the peony bushes, scoring 3 whole times, better than her brother usually did. She'd watched Bowden play often enough. When Mama called her back in, the toes of her white shoes were covered in mud and grass stains. Her mother hissed through her teeth and shook her head before quickly forgetting because they had work to be doing. Myrna sprinkled the countertop and rolling pin with flour. Mama coaxed the dough flat before cutting it with a bread knife into a matrix of squares. She spooned filling into the middle of each square. Myrna pinched each pierogi shut, and Mama came along after to tidy and curl, sealing each mound in a ruffled wave with knowing fingers. When Myrna got older, she'd always hope to match her Mama's touch. 3. Until she entered school, Myrna knew nothing of the great boy-girl divide. She'd played soccer with her brother, and he'd played dolls with her. Different rules came into force once your feet touched the dusty grass of the schoolyard. Her first week of school, she gained herself a detention for daring to play amongst boys. After the other kids went home, she'd had to sit in the too large desk with her feet dangling and knees shaking, sweaty hands gripping the seat, a burning shame covering her face for reasons she did not understand. Mrs. Primrose had better things to be doing than to watch the trembling student behind her. A devoted teacher, she washed the blackboard, restocked the chalk, and busied herself long enough that the girl could learn a lesson and they could both go home. When she was finally set free, Myrna dreaded returning to Mama, the questions and the guilt. Worse if Papa should find out. She thought there were no girls playing soccer because the other girls weren't strong and brave. The schoolboys had a soccer ball, bigger by far than her brother's, and our girl made a clean score from way back. The ball arching through the sky, she said to herself, "How's that now, pretty girls? Come on, leave your silly one-footed hopping. Run with me." She was waiting for a response from any one of the girls, a smile or a wave or something, when she'd felt the claw-like grip over her shoulder and heard the sharp words of a male teacher, "You do not belong here." She'd reached out to her brother with pleading eyes, and he'd turned his back. Her gaze followed him across the field, his familiar gangly legs and awkward feet, certain he'd stop any minute, come to her side, and be the brother she loved. Her head was still cranked towards him when the teacher dragged her onto the cement pad closer to the school, where girls were allowed. The next time Bodum asked her to play soccer in their backyard, she'd kicked him in the shin and gone back into the house to play dolls.
Well, that's paying off, Deb. Good work. Man, you're doing well. I admire your path in writing. You've been working hard at it. And it makes me, the Great Divide. It makes me think of the schoolyard, of course, and one thing that occurred to me was, I think we changed school in, I was in grade 4 maybe, so we had to start walking over the major highway, the 403, went all the way to Hamilton. And walking over the highway, going into a new school, so you have to make your place, and as a boy, of course, you get picked on, you have to fight in the new school. So in the original school at Coronation, I used to like to skip with the girls, and it seemed to be okay, you know, up to grade 4. And then I accidentally tried to get away. No, accidentally. I tried to skip at the new school, and that didn't go over well. I got beat up for that. So I never skipped again. And that was just when I know it's very sad. I'm just sad thinking about it. And that was when the girls were getting into double Dutch, so it was really getting interesting. And you know what it's like. If you don't learn double Dutch when you're all just okay, then by the time they're good, you're not going to learn it. There went my double Dutch career. And, you know, I had to wait, 37 years to be in a pantomime and dress up like a woman and develop my feminine side. There goes the double Dutch. Yeah.
Well, so like true confession here.
Oh.
I used to have quite long hair as a girl. It was really massively curly. I was a tomboy, and it was forever in knots. And my mom just got totally fed up with trying to braid it and braid it and all the things she would do. She cut it super short, and I was like pathologically shy from the very get-go.
Yeah.
And so I was playing with the girls, and the teacher came to me and said, "Hey, you belong over there with the boys."
Oh, God.
Because my hair was so short.
Oh, God.
And I went.
You went? How was that?
Well, my aunt happened to teach at the school, and she came up to me and she said, "Debbie, what are you doing over here?"
Stepping out.
But it was segregated.
Oh, whoa. So you
It
were.
was quite literally segregated. The boys played here and the girls played there. And girls had to wear dresses.
Wow. So you were like an early cross-dresser.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So were you interested in checking out what the boys were doing? Was that fun?
I preferred playing with my male cousins.
Oh.
To this day, some of my closest friends are guys. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You were a tomboy, as you said.
I'm a friend.
You're a friend.
Yeah, he is.
And sorry, how old were you?
I was thinking grade
2. So 6 or 7. Whoa, it's pivotal stuff. I think, well, I'm just going to close by reading a poem for He Who Shall Not Be Named, because we're just not going to go through the whole night and not say his name. And he's in Ontario selling shoes, I think. It's a new career. So I don't know how that's going, but we don't miss him because we got something better this month. That's so cruel. I'm such a terrible man. Okay. Maybe this is about you, not him. Okay, it's the first one I came to. In an artist's studio, and it's written by a guy named Poetry. No, wait. Christina Rossetti. I don't know that name. One face looks out from all his canvases. One self-same figure sits or walks or leans. We found her hidden just behind those screens. That mirror gave back all her loveliness, a queen in opal or in ruby dress. A nameless girl in freshest summer greens. Green. A saint, an angel. Every canvas means the same one meaning, neither more nor less. He feeds upon her face by day and night, and she with true kind eyes looks back on him, fair as the moon and joyful as the light, not wan with waiting, not with sorrow dim, not as she is, but was when hope shone bright, not as she is, but as she fills his dream. I like that. I just don't feel like it was for what's his name. I'll try once more. Okay. Just random, sort of. Just sort of random. Oh, all right. This is by E. E. Cummings, who was British or American? American, okay. Yeah. No, you're probably right, I think.
Yeah, in fact.
Yeah, okay. Somewhere I have never traveled, gladly beyond. Somewhere I have never traveled, gladly beyond any experience. Your eyes have their silence. In your most frail gesture are things which enclose me, or which I cannot touch because they are too near. Your slightest look easily will unclose me, though I have closed myself as fingers. You open always, petal by petal, myself as spring opens, touching skillfully, mysteriously, her first rose. Or if your wish to be close to me, I and my life will shut up very beautifully, suddenly, as when the heart of this flower imagines the snow carefully everywhere descending. Nothing which we are to perceive in this world equals the power of your intense fragility, whose texture compels me with the color of its countries, rendering death and forever with each breathing. I do not know what it is about you that closes and opens. Only something in me understands the voice of your eyes is deeper than all roses. Nobody, not even the rain, has such small hands. That's a good one to end on, I think. He does have a sensitive side, doesn't he? Really? So good. Oh, we should just open this up. A forum. Anyway, thank you for coming out. It is the end of June, which is exciting because 39 Days starts this weekend. Friday, Ted? Yeah. Friday. And this is the how manyth year of 40 of the festival. I think when he says that, he's referring to the Duncan Summer Festival, I believe. So I'm not sure how many years this format's been going on. And Andrew, what's Café La Vie doing in the summer? Are you having your Tuesday?
No, we're postponing it until
October, okay. So for those of you who enjoy going out, they'll be back again in October. And we're apparently canceling July because that's a pretty funky band playing, isn't it, Ted? Who is that? It is. John said it's like a 12-piece funk band on that Tuesday, so we're gonna.
From Montreal, I don't know for 12-piece.
They're big though.
They're big, like yeah, it's gonna be good.
And that's City Square, or is that there?
I think they're playing in here. Late.
Oh.
I think they're
Oh,
playing
okay.
City Square, and I think we're doing one of those late shows in here.
Oh, nice.
I don't know, man. It's 350 bands.
Oh. Well, anyway, if you think of us on that Tuesday, just Papa Groove. Ooh. Yeah, just come and support the showroom in 39 days. If you think of Flo in July, and I'm sure we'll see you all at the venues. I think I'm playing once, twice, maybe play once with guys who write songs, Paul Rizal and some fellow I don't know. And I have a solo one, and so I'm very nervous because I have to practice. I got it. And the Shakespeare Festival, Cowichan Valley Shakespeare Festival at Gem of the Isle Farm, starts on August 6th to the 18th. And tickets will be available at 10 Old Books. It's raucous this year. I say it's 2 comedies. They tell me I'm not in a comedy, but I have a comedic part, so I think the whole thing is a comedy. Measure for Measure. And we're doing Much Ado About Nothing, and people always go, oh, that's a really good show. So we're the underdog, which I like, of course. It'll be fun. Make sure you come out and see us if you haven't been to live Shakespeare in a pasture, right, Deb? And you're looking out at the there's chickens, and you're in an orchard, looking into the pasture, and there's nothing between you and the chickens except the air and the moo. No, there's no cows. It's a horse farm. There's horses. There was a duck one year. The first year we did Pride and Prejudice, a cat stole the show. So things happen. Thank you, everybody. That was a very lovely night, and thank you to our special guest, Shannon. Goes by one name, like Prince, before the symbol. That's right. Thank you for coming out. That was very lovely. And the rest of you, thank you for your great contributions. We'll see you all soon. Good night. Oh, and feel free to meet for drinks and appies. I think we got plenty of time now to make it to the brew pub. Don't forget to support the showroom as 39 Days is happening. The shows that they do put on are fantastical, as always, but they're kind of more. You must just pull out the ones that you really want to do in the summer, right? Because you're so busy.
If we get them at the park and they only got 45 minutes or whatever,
it's a teaser.
They need more than that.
Yeah.
We bring them in here and we go as long as we want.
Good. So just keep.
Really good stuff that's coming in here.
It's great stuff. Keep reaching into your pocket and just come to some shows. See y'all soon.
I've been thinking, is it really too soon to start sinking down into those blue eyes blinking, heavenly chain, all heavenly chain. Hardwired to inspire, and even time is tired. Better set yourself on fire or open the door. Open the door into the dream light. Try to understand. You've got to pull. Take it to the man. Seasons will change right in the palm of your hand and return us to the land.